These are the three musketeers, Michael Barasch, Noah Kushlefsky, and Matt McCauley. Combined, they represent thousands and thousands of responders and survivors with the VCF, and also have done tremendous help with the World Trade Center Health Program. They've also been a force to be reckoned with keeping the legislation that are keeping these programs vibrant and relevant for us today. So let's begin. We're going to have a little bit more of a conversation, and I'm going to hope that you can come away with a couple of little bit better understanding on how this whole process works. So.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Oh, and this one's on too. Okay. I was hoping you could start to address, this is coming from the experience, we talk to people directly, what we hear is, can you explain a little bit about what the amendment process is when you, well, first of all, I guess let's start with, can you explain what the difference is between filing to register and what a claim is?
I'll take this one then. So
Take the hard one.
The hard one, yeah. So two different programs. You're going to be hearing about the health program later. We always call it enrolling in the World Trade Center Health Program, registering with the Victim Compensation Fund. When Congress created the Zadroga Health and Compensation Act in 2010, they created these two programs. And while they're separate, and you must register in both separately, registering in one is not automatically registering in the other. But the two programs work hand in hand. You need to get into the health program, then get certified with a 9/11 illness before you can then register in the Victim Compensation Fund. And you brought up the amendment process, so I was going to say this anyway. One of the most compassionate things that the Victim Compensation Fund did when it was created is they made it so you never waive your legal rights. I can't tell you how many guys we've all spoken to who say, oh, I don't want to sign up now because I only have asthma or I only have skin cancer. We urge everybody, register even if you're healthy, protect yourselves and your families. If, God forbid, you get another illness down the road, even if you only get $20,000 for asthma or sinusitis, you have the right 5 years, 10 years later to register again or amend your claim and get an award for skin cancer. And then, God forbid, 30 years down the road, you get prostate cancer or any other of the 69 cancers linked, you can amend again. And finally, one day, it's up until 2090, if you ever die of a respiratory illness or cancer linked to the World Trade Center toxins, your family has the right to make a wrongful death claim. So that's really something very important.
So that's new too, is that since Allison has come in, she's been able to add the
It's not
wrongful
new.
death.
No, that is in the original statute.
Okay.
One of the new things, though, that Allison has continued, it really started with the last special master, is the Great Terminal Expedite Program.
Okay.
So if, God forbid, you're diagnosed with an illness and the doctor says you have less than a year to live, Allison's staff will expedite the claim, and you can get an award within 3 months, even less sometimes. And I can't tell you what comfort that can give someone who knows they're going to die, but now knows their family's not going to lose their house, their kids can go to college. I mean, it's really a great thing. It makes us feel great about the work we do.
Well, let me just add, the question of the difference between registering and filing a claim.
Right.
I think Michael might have misspoke. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. You can register your claim with the VCF without being part of the health program, and you can register with the VCF without being diagnosed or approved with a condition. It's simply going to the VCF website, providing some information, and you get a VCF number. There's a value to doing that even if you haven't been diagnosed with anything and have no intention to currently file a claim. And the value is that the statute of limitations, the time to file a claim, stops when you register. The statute of limitations starts when you're certified for a condition or when you know or should know that a condition is 9/11 related through some official determination, usually the health program. So by registering a claim or registering as a potential claimant, you're essentially eliminating any possibility of running out of time once you are diagnosed with something or certified with something. So registering is relatively simple, and the VCF encourages anyone that meets the exposure hours to register.
And Noah,
Filing-
do you need a lawyer to register?
You
Jordy
don't,
may
but
be
you
listening.
should have one. I'm just kidding. No, you do not. It's actually simple, and you can do that online. Filing a claim requires a certification from the health program that you've been diagnosed with an eligible condition. So that's the distinction is anyone can register.
Right.
Somebody with an approved certified condition can file.
So
what
to add
happens-
one more thing to that, vcf.gov, if you go there, it'll take you longer to create the login than it'll create a registration. There's a lot of questions that you have to fill out, but once you have a login, you just do your registration, that's it. It ends right there, as Noah was saying. There's a group of all of us, I was a responder, you have everybody who worked down there as well, who also people don't have, they're philosophically opposed, let's say, to, collecting money, but they'll go for health insurance. As Noah and Michael said, file the registration because it stops the statute of limitations. If you don't ever want to file a claim, don't. You don't have to. But if you file the registration, as Noah was talking about, when the statute of limitations starts to run, now you get 10 years down the road and God forbid something happens to you and your family finds that you had a certification from the World Trade Center Health Program, but you never filed a claim. If more than 2 years has passed, they can't do anything. They won't be able to file a claim for you because you can file a claim for somebody who has since passed away. But the certification date, you'll hear that numerous times from us, is a trigger. It brings things back to life, but is a trigger for the 2-year statute of limitations when it comes to an illness itself. So if you don't want to file anything and you don't want to collect anything, don't. But file the registration. Just stop the time. For anybody who's a cop, stop the clock. So you literally just stop it at that moment. If it's in the future, if it's 10 years from now, Michael covered something incredibly important. You're not waiving anything by filing a registration. You're not giving up any rights in the future to anything else.
Or taking
But
it from anybody.
Please. Anybody who's in here, if you think that even if you think you may be eligible, file it. There's nothing. Nobody's contacting you. There's no downside to it whatsoever, and it stops you and protects you. So that's the lawyer side of it.
Right.
Is it stops the statute of limitations 30 years from now.
So Matt, I'm just curious, what's the most common reason you hear from your clients why they didn't register earlier?
The same thing. Either they're philosophically opposed to it initially. They thought the money was only for responders. They didn't think that they were strong enough responder in a sense that they did security, but they weren't working on the pile. Quite honestly, they worked in an office building and never knew that the program was for them. They thought it was just for the responders. Everything that we've dealt with, for 2 decades now, going through this.
Yeah, and a lot of people say they don't want to take away from somebody who really needs it.
Right.
And so one has nothing to do with the other. So if you register it, you're not taking away from anyone. It's the same thing with the health program. I would like to go back to, we mentioned at the beginning, the idea of a go bag. This is sort of like your health go bag, in the sense is you're making a preparation for something you never want to have to use to escape from. So now you've got sort of like a little something in your bag for the future. My next question is, what happens, and we get this a lot, is somebody has died without their family knowing that they were eligible to either be in the health program or and never filed, or filed before, or died before the VCF was established. Can they go back, like with medical records, and make a claim?
I mean, can the family make
Can the
a claim?
family?
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I urge you all, those of you who have not registered, don't leave it to your spouse to do this for you. Don't leave it to your kids to do it on behalf of your family. You're doing your family such a favor by registering, even if you're healthy. And I'm going to add also, secure your proof of presence.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? So Noah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Michael raises a great point. To file a claim with the Victim Compensation Fund, I think everybody in this room probably knows you need to prove 2 things. You need to prove your presence in the exposure zone for the right amount of time, and that you have an eligible condition. If you think about it, proving an eligible condition is simple. That's a medical record. It's a medical condition that's diagnosed. Proof of presence is not as simple. It can be in some cases. It can be more complex in other cases, depending on what brought you into the exposure zone. There are people that were in the subway going from point A to point B, and at point A and A.5, they ended up out of the subway in the exposure zone. They were traveling alone. That's a difficult case. People that worked in the area. Anybody that was in the exposure zone, what you have to remember is we're 24 years post 9/11 at this point. Every day that goes by, is a day further away from that day and further away from the proof that you were down there. So one of the things that we all advocate is to get your proof of presence in order, even if, again, you don't have a claim and you don't have a condition. Proof of presence can be proven in a number of ways, through sworn statements, through employment records, through a lease, something from a management company if you live there. But imagine that 10 or 15 years from now you're diagnosed with something, how much more difficult it would be to establish and gather proof of presence in 15 years. Which is why, for example, I don't know what these guys do in their offices, but if we have people that come to us with no illness or injury, we actually say, we will take your claim, even without a claim, work on proof of presence, we will hold it for you, and if anything happens in the future, you know that it's been secured, because it's not getting easier to prove you're down there, it's getting more difficult to prove you were down there. So the immediacy is really important. If anybody was in the exposure zone, doesn't have a claim, but has people that can attest that they were down there, you can go on the VCF website, print out the attestations that a person has to fill out, have them swear to it and sign it, and you can put that in a file, and in 10 or 15 years, I mean, that's the greatest challenge that we have as advocates for our clients, is proof of presence.
And Matt, can you talk a little bit about the arrangements that the Victim Compensation Fund is making with private companies?
So there's various arrangements, but to hit something on what Noah was saying, and then Stephanie used a great word before when she said go bag. You know, the concept of a go bag, as everybody knows here, is to have something you're prepared for that, God willing, you'll never need it. Well, that's the same concept as Michael and Noah are going over, the importance of presence documents or other supportive documents. You know, I would imagine how many people in here have a folder if something happens to them in general, you know, what they have, if it's a will, if it's a lease, if it's the deed to their house, everything's in one place. Anybody and everybody that's in here or watching this that's in the 9/11 community needs to have another folder that the rest of the world doesn't have. It needs to say 9/11 on it. And you need to have that folder. And in that folder, whether Michael has things, I have things, the VCF has things, you think NYPD has things, FDNY has things, it doesn't matter. You need to have those documents in your possession for the rest of your life that can then be handed off to somebody else if, God forbid, something happens. You're running marathons all the time? Great, no problem. Can you get the proof of presence, and can you please have it in a folder, because businesses change. You know, Michael was deeply involved in the Notice Act. The Notice Act is only as good as the Notice Act is, and it doesn't force people to do things. It's only as good as the execution, as John is laughing. Should I say pound? Inside joke from yesterday. But at the same time, have that folder. And the reason for it is people go out of business. They don't exist anymore. Write your own personal statement. We're 24 years later. We've all done cases with no evidence. All of us have done successful cases with no evidence whatsoever than the person raising their right hand and giving an account of exactly what happened and taking them through it. So that some people exclude themselves because I don't have any proof. Were you there? Yeah, I was there. Tell me your story. And then the whole story goes. Okay, we're 24 years older. Write your story down. If you remember things about it, write it down. Start there. If you have something, if you were a lawyer and you got off the train in front of 60 Center Street and the towers came down and you never made it to court and then you left, okay, so where's your proof? You don't have any of anybody seeing you, but you have all of these peripheral things. Get as much as possible, put it in a folder, email it to yourself. Use technology for good so you know it's someplace. Give it to Noah. Call Noah, call Mike, call me. We'll get you registered, but have it because it just goes away. Now, the VCF has an entire list. If you go into vcf.gov, policies and procedures, and then you look in their list of what they have about their special contacts, they've done a great job. New York State Police, FBI, federal agencies, city agencies, but they're also hamstringed by what that agency actually has for you, or even the private companies for you. You could have worked there for 30 years. You may be the folder that's missing something. Yeah. So be your own advocate. Really, you know, we do the same thing. We put everybody in a health program that's not sick. We're more than happy to do that, get you your proof of presence, move you forward. But for the same time, make sure you're your own advocate. You don't need a lawyer to do this, because at the end of the day, it's you protecting yourself and your family. So use all of those tools, but have it in front of you. And if you did a VCF claim already, and you've already actually been paid, make sure you have a copy of all of that as well for the future, if God forbid somebody else needs it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. This is a non-adversarial program. Mm-hmm. People have to understand it's not like going to court and you have to have firm evidence to win your case and you're being cross-examined viciously. No, it's not like that. The VCF wants to help you. They are tasked. They were created to create compensation, to give you justice, but they also can't just give money away because you say you were there. But if you're credible, if you remember certain details of where you were, what you saw that day, the hearing officer might very well believe it. And even without no corroboration, you still could win your case. So don't give up. That's what I'm saying.
Well, nobody's going to advocate for yourself better than yourself.
Can I ask a question? It occurred to me only 3 weeks ago, and I think you know I'm a 9/11 family member, that we were all invited to the area on October 28, 2001, and we sat in front of the burning pit for 3 hours for a program. It's not anybody's fault.
Right.
Okay? I don't remember what the hell happened, but we were there.
Right.
Okay? Over 9,000 9/11 family members were there. Is the VCF making any kind, I mean, I live 1 mile from here. I live at Bleecker and Thompson Street, so it's, it's like, I could walk there. I do walk there. And, what's that? Oh, thank you. Sorry, my name is Charles Wolf, and I was an advocate for the fund back in 02 to 03. But it occurred to me after I did several witness statements for people who were down there, I said, oh my God, I had forgotten. We were all down there, over 9,000 of us, documented in the New York Times. Is the VCF taking that into consideration? Because in the early days, none of us knew each other.
Right.
You can't have a witness.
Matt, you want to take
And I just realized
Well,
that.
I think I can
and-
partially answer your question.
And just one little add-on to it, Noah, is that my father and his wife came right away.
know,
They drove
I know.
from Indiana to be with me. We were down as close as they would let us go. However, she died of a mysterious kidney ailment, and my father had a lobe removed from his lungs, and they found particulate in there that they could not explain. Even I did not connect the two.
Right. So Charles, let
Yeah.
Noah answer your question.
Yeah.
There's a two-part answer to your question. The first part is that the Victim Compensation Fund, as we know, has exposure requirements, which are certain hours during certain time periods. Anybody that was down there has to meet the time, those time requirements, whether you were there that day for that event or anything else. And what I have learned is that most people who lost someone in the towers meet those time requirements because they've gone down there multiple times. That's part one. Part two, the VCF takes an extremely holistic approach to proof of presence, meaning that the fact that you lost somebody on that day creates or is a fact that would essentially be used to trust, let's say, or verify your presence in the zone. People that lost people went down there. They know that. So if you were just a person off the street that said, I went down and visited and looked around a bunch of times for this number of hours, that has a different, that is viewed differently than someone who says, I lost a family member and was down there on the following days. They know that people went down there. So the holistic approach means that someone in that position will be given greater weight when they're evaluating presence and the hours in the zone. Does that answer your question?
Increased credibility.
Yes.
There's one other part to your question that's actually important, we all deal with this, is the VCF actually, we get policy changes every month that the VCF will identify an employer that now they have a direct link with. Now that could be an employer, an agency, an organization, or anything else. So if you or anybody else in here, whether you had 5 employees, 2 employees, or 5,000 employees, if you have information about the people who were there, contact the VCF. I'm not going to pitch it out to the law firms. Contact the VCF directly. Contact them directly, because they will take the proof of presence. They've gone out and gotten it from the churches. They've gone out and gotten it from the different city agencies. They don't have it from all city agencies, either because it's not there or because it just hasn't happened. State agencies, federal agencies. It was not, as much as they can gather, they will get, but you have to contact them for it. They will do it. We've seen it in real time where they've set up entire protocols where no proof of presence is needed other than a letter from that particular organization or agency. So if you're out there and you have that information, go to them. It makes you're taking care of your employees is what you're doing. You're protecting their future and you're doing it. So you brought up a great point, because even if it's a volunteer agency that was down there and if it was a widows organization or somebody else that was there, by all means, get that information to them.
And Charles, remember we talked about at the beginning that in order to be eligible for the Victim Compensation Fund, you first need to be certified with an illness by the health program. The health program also has requirements for number of hours. So if in your example, and I think everyone should know that Stanley Tucci played Charles in the movie Worth, just as a little aside, you were fabulous, that I don't think the health program would certify an illness if the only time you were there was October 19th. On the other hand, because you said it was just 3 hours, but so many of, all of our clients who lost loved ones were down there the next few days. Remember, they were holding up signs of their loved ones. Have you seen my husband? Have you seen my son? And as Noah said, the Victim Compensation Fund, not adversarial, they'll look at that. That'll give you credibility, and it has for a number of my clients who can show that they were there and they had a real reason to be there. They weren't a tourist going through, they were there searching for their loved ones. So that, in conjunction with the October 19th ceremony, might very well be enough to get someone eligible.
I'd also like to point out is, and I refer a lot of people to this, the VCF's website is very good, as is their people that answer the phone. They're very thorough, they're very knowledgeable. I mean, you can't say that about a lot of things that have such complex programs, but the World Trade Center Health
The
Program pretty
helpline
much
people are fabulous.
are really
Yeah.
fabulous, and we should really take advantage of the fact they're very, very well trained. I mean, I often have to call for clarification, and I've been working on this for a while.
I just want to just add
Yeah.
one thing. The helpline is extremely valuable and knowledgeable about policies and procedures.
Right.
They have limited visibility on individual claims. So if an individual is calling them about their claim, they can only answer to an extent. But if you have a question about how the VCF works, what some of the rules are, what some of the requirements are, the website is a great resource. The helpline is a great resource, and advocates are a great resource.
Can I just ask another question? Could you explain the difference between an economic and a non-economic loss? Because that's always listed, and that's kind of one of those gray areas for the lay people out there.
Matthew.
Sure. Well, the non-economic loss is just about the illness itself. Now, the economic and non-economics also fall into when you get into amendments and other aspects of this. But think of a non-economic loss as purely for a personal injury case is the illness itself, from GERD all the way through cancer, multiple cancers. The VCF has its policy on what they have for their statutory maximums for both. And then they're not mutually exclusive in a sense where you can only file a non-economic award and never file an economic award again. The economic award itself comes down to if you've lost the ability to earn. It's most often tied to either a disability, permanent, or a temporary disability. So the VCF can also we can also file claims for people who are out of work, say for a year. You have a stem cell transplant, you're out of work for a year, because I think Social Security automatically finds you disabled for a year in a stem cell transplant. So if you're not working and you don't have benefits during that year, you actually can file what's called a past lost earnings claim. That's an economic loss. Now, that doesn't also keep you from filing something in the future, if God forbid you're permanently disabled. So, you have to sort of get through the maze, I guess you'd say, of some of these policies, but understand that the VCF is very liberal with amendments and liberal with going back. You never lose a right to go back for something. And for the economic loss, it's just as important as the non-economic loss, because if you have GERD and then you are given an award and you develop a sinus condition, maybe you'll get something more, maybe sleep apnea. If you develop skin cancer, if God forbid you end up with a solid tumor cancer or something worse. And for the people in here, that may sound like foreign, but for Michael and Noah and I, it's a daily experience of having the clients who come back that unfortunately have multiple issues that go on. And then eventually become disabled 10 years later. And then you can go and file for an economic loss. It is based on your determination of disability. That's a long conversation that we don't have the time for as far as how that starts or when that starts, but it's based on something that determines you to be disabled. And then the award is based on how the VCF does it on their side. Did I cover that well? I saw somebody raising their hand.
Oh,
I do have a question because it affects me a great deal. I was declined economic loss. I was there that day. I lived across the street for several years. I got very sick, okay? I had to move. And I was turned down for victim compensation because I did not have a disability claim. Now, I did not have a diagnosis at the time. I had a rarely diagnosed sinus infection, so it is a covered condition. Sphenoid sinus, it presses up against the brain, it affects the whole body, causes loss of vision, you could have a stroke, cause a heart attack, infertility. There's any number of secondary conditions caused by this type of sinus infection, which is rarely diagnosed. So I went until my brain was pulsating to many, many different doctors until someone finally ordered an MRI, and it was there, still not diagnosed as the cause of everything I experienced, okay? So I didn't have a disability claim, although I lost my work. I had to move. I incurred incredible expense doing all of this. And I found the victim compensation process to be very adversarial.
Yeah, sure.
They challenged me on every single item I told them. Even about this sinus, I did extensive research, presented the facts, presented my condition. They still turned me down.
so I think the question is what do you do when you've been turned down?
What do you
That's real-
do if you
so that-
don't
to make sure
have
it's-
a disability claim? I'm self-employed, so I don't have a union or, human resources to go to bat for me. And I was very sick. I couldn't go through it. And without a diagnosis, you don't qualify for disability.
Okay.
So what happens?
Michael, you want to take that?
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, as Matt was saying, you haven't waived your right.
Who's your attorney?
I'm self-represented.
Well-
Nobody would take me on because I don't have cancer.
Okay, that's simply not true, with all
That
due
is true,
respect.
even
'cause-
at your office. I'm sorry, but that is what happened.
Okay, so let me try to help. You have not waived your rights. It isn't too late to try to make this claim. But what the Victim Fund is going to look for is, first of all, were you certified with an illness that is considered a 9/11 illness by the health program? Secondly, were you found disabled by Social Security, a private disability insurance policy, or I don't know if you were a cop or a firefighter, you said you had your own business, but they're looking for some determination. The Victim Compensation Fund by itself does not determine whether someone is disabled. Sometimes there are exceptions, but that's the kind of evidence they're looking for, and having represented tens of thousands of people among the three of us, I can most assuredly tell you that the fund wants to help everybody. It really isn't adversarial like a court of law, like suing in a car accident can be. If you'd like to talk to us afterwards,
Yeah.
we'd be happy to do, but we try not to take personal stuff when everybody else is here. But I'm happy to talk to you, I really
It's going to affect a
am.
lot of people because this sphenoid sinusitis
Yes,
is not.
I'm going to
sure.
have to stop you at this moment because we have a lot of stuff to do in a very short amount of time, and there's a lot of people with very, very important questions.
I'm just saying,
What-
a lot of
I
people may
understand.
have claims
No,
that just don't
absolutely,
know.
I
and,
understand.
and we would love to address this, and we will make ourselves available. But I think in the interest of time, I have a question on, could you explain the fast track or expedited process? What would that do? Because a lot of people, when they get a diagnosis and it's a severe diagnosis, we've alluded to the impact that it has on the families, and that's what we hear about. And so knowing that there's this process is extremely helpful, if you could explain what that means.
There's two different types of claims that can be eligible for an expedited treatment by the VCF, which can result in an award in really under a month. One of them is if somebody is has a medical condition that is urgent and is going to be fatal. They will push a claim through in an expedited fashion in order to get them an award so that they know, as Michael said before, give them the peace of mind to know that they're eligible, that their family will be taken care of, and that ultimately their family will have a claim after they pass. The other type of expedited claim is somebody that's under severe financial distress. The VCF is a little bit more exacting in what they require when you're claiming financial distress. There are people that we have attempted to file those claims when they have collection agencies calling them and they're behind on their rent. And the VCF in those cases really requires that you be almost imminently homeless and thrown out of your house.
An eviction notice, for instance.
Really an eviction notice. But with respect to somebody that is really sick and is going to pass, they are extremely receptive to getting claims resolved quickly. They'll even go through the appeals process within weeks of filing a claim.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing program.
It really is, and you guys are amazing, and I would like to thank everybody for being so nice and quiet so we could get through a lot of this. We have run out of time.
Thank you,
We have
Steph.
another terrific...
They have 4 minutes.
They have... Well, I have to get you up on here, and we know that it takes...
I'll reserve my time.
Anyway, well, I guess I with my 4 minutes, I'll say, do you have any close? I mean, I would like to thank you all for coming. I thank you for your honesty, your questions. I think I mentioned at the beginning that Allison has said that she would be willing to do an online program for us. So we keep tuned for when we're going to be doing that. We also provide an awful lot of information on our website about the VCF and about the World Trade Center Health Program, so you can always feel free to call us about some general questions. And do you have any closing thoughts?
I have one closing thought.
Yeah, okay.
I want to address, I don't know your name.
Ben Shavat.
No. The woman that was speaking before. The way the process is supposed to work is that if you have an eligible condition, which would be sinusitis, that should be certified. Whether the VCF will accept that condition creates is so extraordinary that it creates a disability can be addressed, and sometimes can be addressed without a formal disability finding for someone who does not have the ability to get a disability finding by virtue of the fact that they're not eligible for Social Security disability, don't have private disability. So it's not an impossibility. It requires certain exceptions to be implemented by the VCF, extraordinary circumstances. The VCF is receptive to addressing individual claims individually. It may very well be that at first blush, and depending on how your claim was filed and how it was viewed, that they said, well, A plus B doesn't equal C. But with the right advocacy, I'm not saying that your claim would be successful, but you have a much better chance at success if the claim is presented in a certain way. And we have experience in doing that. We've seen complex claims that don't fit into the ordinary in the ordinary tranche that the VCF is accustomed to or that we're accustomed to be successful. It requires a little bit extra work, but it's work that we've all done in the past. So don't be discouraged.
Yeah, and I would like to close by just saying something that you said, which is be each other's advocates. John, do you mind if I just finish? Be each other's advocates, please. Even if you are healthy, as we've discussed today, get your proof of presence, tell your families what to do if, God forbid, you die of a 9/11 illness. Don't wait until you get that awful diagnosis that you have 3 months to live. Protect yourselves now and spread the word to your friends who aren't here, who aren't watching on the live stream now. It's not too late. This fund is open until 2090.
Correct.
We all agree. It does so much good. And it was Congress fulfilling. After they told us the air was safe to breathe, which was a lie, we know, Congress did the right thing by creating these programs. Take advantage of it.
Great.
My closing remark is just never give up. Nobody gave up that day. Nobody gave up 24 years later. If you have a claim and something's associated with it, or if you're having problems getting into one of these programs, never, ever give up. Noah also touched on something for you. Things change, science changes. John has always said over the years, science is catching up to the things that we know. We see cases and illnesses get medically associated conditions 10 years after a diagnosis because 10 years ago they wouldn't give a medically associated condition. So also go to the World Trade Center Health Program, because the key to that also is if the condition you have ends up being a MAC, for everybody MAC, medically associated condition, if the World Trade Center Health Program decides that that issue is medically associated, you've just paved the way into the VCF for it all being. I'm just saying don't ever give up, because there's so many.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have run out of time, right, John? Thank you all.